Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Board of Public Education Agenda Review Meeting, December 14th, 2011. We'll begin this evening with the Committee on Education for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. And let's go with the entire Committee on Education. Mr. Brentley, do you have any questions? Okay, Mrs. Khaleesi. Dr. Hawley. No. Mr. Eisler.
Yes, I do. I just want to be clear, Ms. Baer, that some of the payments authorized are really for the non-public school services that we need to support through the Commonwealth, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. McCray?
Not on education, no.
Ms. Shealy? Mr. Sumter?
No questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the Committee on Business for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. And Mr. Brentley, we're to you. Ms. Khaleesi. Dr. Hawley. No. Mr. Eisler.
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. McCray?
Yes, just a general question about E-rate funding. Is this federal funding, E-rate?
Yes, this is for the Act 183 grant that IU2 and IU3 partner together for the non-public schools.
My concern is that are we allowed to use federal dollars for parochial schools? Is there the separation of church and state and all that kind of stuff?
This is Act 183 is directly for this non-public.
Okay, thank you. That's what I'm checking.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Mr. Sumter. Okay, that ends our business. Thank you, Ms. Beer, for the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver. We'll move on to the agenda review for the first. It's the green pages. It's proposals and grants. It's numbers 1 through 6. And we'll start with Mr. Brentley.
No questions at this time.
Mrs. Khaleesi.
We're on the green, correct? Okay, I did ask my questions in writing. However, I didn't get answers that satisfied me. So on number 1, this is the Summer Dreamers Academy. And I guess what I wanted to be sure of is that if we're having Summer Dreamers is going to be throughout the districts, does this mean no schools will be having any summer school of their own?
That is what we anticipate at this time. Remember that the money that we were typically using for summer school was cut in the governor's budget.
No, because a lot of times it came out of site-based budgets.
Typically, we don't anticipate having any summer school outside of the Summer Dreamers offerings.
Okay, I guess where I'm a little concerned is the word you're using is anticipate, which means that anybody could go ahead and do it. And I want to be sure that, we're not giving these students a bunch of options and then they pick one opposed to another.
Mrs. Khaleesi, one of the things that in the past before Summer Dreamers, is a significant improvement in the summer school offerings. And in the past, there was not one really great model. And so because there is Summer Dreamers and we have some information to show that it is a very robust program, there will be only one offered in the district. We've had communications with the principals, and there are no, when we did speak with them, there was no plans for any additional summer school programs outside of Summer Dreamers.
So I guess, are you going to be clear that we'd like to stay with the one program, being the Summer Dreamers program?
Yes, because we do not have additional funding to support another program to the level that would be equal to Summer Dreamers program.
Okay, and then I see that we had to cut the Summer Dreamers program almost in half, little over half. And then it says in here that it's going to go by lottery. Can you explain how that's going to work? How's this going to work?
For that level of detail, we'll ask Kate Reed to come forward, please.
Hi, Kate Reed, Executive Director of Student Support Services. We're actually working through all of the details of the lottery right now. We're going to be increasing our focus that we've had the past few years on ensuring that our students that are in most need of summer programming can receive it. So we're working right now on a model that would have a lottery giving preference to those students that need additional academic help, so those performing below basic and basic, and also our free and reduced lunch students. And I can get you the specifics on how that will work. We're right in the midst right now of designing it, and ensuring that we can get to those students that need it the most over the summer.
Yeah, I guess when you're done designing it is really when I'd like to see it.
Yes.
So, and then how are you going to do this if, let's say you do a lottery and you have 2,500 spots and you fill all 2,500, but then, first couple of days, only 2,000 show up. Do you have something planned that you can pick up another 500?
We plan to have waiting lists at all grade levels. We actually also plan to over-enroll based on historical data that shows how many students typically have not come, so that we do have as many students there on day one and attending through the entire summer.
Okay, so, and we're going to be doing it through grades?
Students that have finished kindergarten all the way through students who have finished 8th grade.
Finished 8th grade will be going into the 9th grade.
Correct.
Why would we be including them?
We would be including them because the magnet policy approved in the spring of 2009 requires that students accepted to some magnet programs who are below basic do need to attend a summer program. So we've included them to do a transition to high school program during that time to help them ramp up their skills to prepare for 9th grade.
Okay, so if my child, for example, got into a magnet and is basic and doesn't get the lottery, does that mean they're not in the magnet?
No, those students will be in the program. That's part of some of the logistics we're working through right now.
Okay. And then on number 2, I got the board update and I read it and I thought it would answer this one, this board tab. This is number 2. I don't understand number 2. Can somebody please quickly explain what this is?
Ms. Flazy, I'll try, and then Kate can provide some backup if I don't get it right. We've had a after-school program coordinator for approximately 3 years, and this is actually extending or continuing that work of that after-school coordinator. Now more than ever, we're looking to this individual to really help us coordinate all of our after-school providers, which I do believe, I don't think we included in this packet, but we've had previously to the board. One of the things we don't do well is really leverage the school-based offerings after school and what community partnerships have to offer. So it's helping us actually match schools with partners, as well as develop tracking and data systems to actually monitor student success, who we're using, attendance, all of those things in the program.
When you say after-school programs, you also are talking about programs that are out there that parents pay to put their kids in until they're picked up from work, for example. Would that be one of those programs?
I'm going to have to ask Kate because I don't have off the top of my head the list of all the after-school providers.
Yes, this includes all of the community and faith-based organizations that run programs both in our school and outside of our schools that have gone through that application process through the after-school program office.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hawley, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a few. I have to say that I'm a bit disappointed that some of the schools would not be able to have their own summer programming. As you know, Lincoln had their own summer programming for years, and it was highly subscribed. As a matter of fact, it was almost like using school all over again for 6 weeks. So I'm a bit disappointed in that. But nevertheless, I'd like to ask a couple of questions about the Summer Dreamers program. We don't know how it will function, exactly how it will be functioning for next summer. Let me bring Ms. Reed back out here.
Yeah, we'll bring Kate, if you could come back up, please.
Could you just be more specific in terms of locations?
I see that what locations will you have in the East End?
Because of the scaled back size of the program, we're going to have 3 sites this summer. They'll be located in the East Central area. It'll be located at Pittsburgh, Mallions, in the Southwest. Oh, you're going to quiz me, and I'm not going to remember the other 2 off the top of my head.
It's Carmel and King.
Carmel and King will be the other 2, the north and then the south locations. And we've done that just in terms of trying to increase the efficiency in terms of cost and making sure that we can serve as many students as possible.
Okay, Pittsburgh Mallions is not in the east. That's in the central part of the city. So there's no programming in the east end of Pittsburgh, for Summer Dreamers.
No, there's nothing past east of Center Avenue.
Okay. That's something we might want to look at again, because there are so many students in the East that actually attended your Summer Dreamers program, not just mine, not just Lincoln's. So now Lincoln won't have one, and now, so all of those children will have to get on a bus to go to Malines. Is that what you're telling me?
The vast majority of our students last summer did take the bus, even to those in the eastern areas. One of the challenges we're facing is just we have limited physical spaces. We have to ensure it has the facilities that can do all of the things we want to do. And so there was a pretty comprehensive overview, and I can get you some more details on that. We did look at several sites, but with the transition into the Peabody facility for Pittsburgh Obama, that's going to be just a challenge for the summer. So we did look pretty comprehensively at many sites, and ultimately these were the three that we thought would be closest to the vast majority of students we've previously served.
Okay, so you didn't look at Faison as a building that's air conditioned, fabulous facility, Baxter right up the street for swimming, or even Westinghouse for that matter, is a building that could have been used in the East.
I can get you some more specifics on the review, but yes, all buildings were reviewed.
I just wanted to be clear when I looked at this that there was no school in the East, and where there are a substantial amount of students that actually do attend summer school programming. Where are we at with the completion of data on how well students did from your Summer Dreamers program last year? How well did they do during the school year in terms of their academics?
We did see gains in the SRI. We have a report that we can share with you. It's also available on the website from our first year results done by the National Summer Learning Association. We're also in the midst of the second year of that evaluation. They're reviewing that data now, and we'll also have a report from the RAND Corporation that'll be coming out in the coming weeks. So we're happy to get any of that information forwarded along to you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to see that.
Sure.
So, and do you know about approximately when you'll have that data available?
I can get you the exact date. I know they're in the midst of getting that from our RAA team and doing the analysis on both ends. We have some anecdotal preliminary reports that we forwarded before, but I will get you an exact date on that this week.
Number two, is this a new position, the after-school program coordinator? The reason why I'm asking, but I'm just going to preface this by saying $300,000 for, and it's basically for the person's salary. Am I right or wrong? Will support the salary and benefits of the after-school manager, temporary clerical and intern support. This is, is this new?
No, it's not new, and it's the funding that you just kept reading there, it goes beyond her salary. There are other things that are in there, like copying, publication.
I mean, well, is this new staff? Is this new staff?
No.
So these people are already working for the district?
Yes.
And so tell me a little bit about how you intend, how this position or this group of people are going to support the learning of the students in the class for our, how they're going to support the learning of our students.
Dr. Hawley, I'll try to dig a little bit deeper, although Jen Ripper's not here tonight, so we can always provide follow-up if I don't satisfy your question here. Basically, as I told Mrs. Khaleesi, what this position is trying to do is coordinate our community-based partners and our faith-based partners. We have a lot of them, and schools have really been left to their own devices, and some schools don't even know some of the organizations that are actually out there willing to serve them. So a lot of this work is really coordinating a rather large group of organizations to try to bring the best services to students. This is particularly important given that we don't have the funds that we used to have to run our after-school programs in individual schools because of the reduction of the EAP funding that came from the state. Again, the other part of this position is so to formalize the partnerships, making sure that we're leveraging the best community and faith-based organizations, matching them with schools. The other part is really developing a data management system so that we know who's partnering with who. We actually have some data tracking on students, how well students are doing, going between the organizations back to the school. And so that's part of what this person is organizing.
I was under the impression that this type of work had already been done in the district prior to that. I know that it has been done because the person came to, we had to actually tell you and give you that information. The principals had to tell you and give you that information as to what organizations you were partnering with in your schools. I don't know how this person is going to coordinate that because it's usually done by the building administrator. Again, I'm questioning why I could do so much more with this $300,000. I mean, there's a lot,
I'll
I'm
write that up as a
concerned about
follow-up
that.
unless Dr. Lane, you want to provide detail.
Just a couple of things, and I met, there was an event just last week with this individual who had organized with our after-school providers, and there's a lot of interest about the ability of the district to work better with after-school providers. So that kind of is how the whole role got precipitated in the first place, because our community partners found it, who do I interface with, who do I talk to, who can I get more information, who can help me with anything from, getting a building or permit or whatever else. And so that's how this role got started. And then the other part that we felt was very important is that we somehow know which kids we're working with whom and which kids aren't working with anybody. Because we have some of our kids who are working with a partner, or two or three perhaps, and then we have other kids who may have a great need but aren't linked in with any other after out of school time person. So that was another reason. And then I also would like to point out that the money for this position was given to us by the Heinz Endowments for this purpose. And so it isn't something that we could transfer it and spend it on something else. And so I just want to be clear about that part.
I understand that, and I think that the fact that somebody had to actively seek writing out this grant in order to do that work, or you're just telling me they were gracious enough to just give this to us. If so, hallelujah.
Actually, Heinz is very committed to out-of-school time. And they, at least and this was actually several years ago, they wanted us to have someone in this role. And we clearly didn't feel like we could provide that out of the operating budget, so they did graciously agree to support the role. So we're very grateful for that.
Okay, I have one more question in this section, and it's number 5. I wanted to ask why, with this group, that it's only working with the Teacher Institute, and why are we not working more broadly with more principals and more groups within the district?
This tab actually does support a larger body of work. The reason why it's centered more at the teaching institutes is because the teaching institute, under the Empowering Effective Teachers plan, actually supports all the training for career ladder teachers. So, for example, Carrick, Langley, Oliver, Alderdice, they all have PRCs, the Promise Readiness Corps. All of those teachers have been put through this summer Beyond Diversity training. So this tab also supported all new teacher induction for the past 2 years in the district. So any teacher that's been new to our system, K-12, has been through a 2-day Beyond Diversity training. So although it does seem very centered at the teaching institutes, the work has been branching out. The other thing I will say to the board, and this one is confusing even sometimes to us here, is that there's actually 2 contracts with PEG. One specifically for EET work, which is what I just explained. There is also another one that supports more general work with the district around the principal professional development, around our racial equity work, our work with RISE design teams, for example. So there are 2 contracts, and this one is specific to the Empowering Teachers work, specific to career ladder teachers, and to the work that's currently going on at King and Brashear.
So in other words, the other teachers and other principals will be privy to this information from Pacific Group.
The design of the actual training that goes into training the clinical resident instructors, which are some of the career ladder teachers that are at King and Brashear, they will not, other teachers and administrators in the district will not receive the level of training that they are, because they're being trained to facilitate other folks learning. So they won't receive that level of training, but they will most certainly benefit from the work.
Mrs. Fink?
No, actually, I'm good on that section.
Mr. Eisler?
Thank you. Mrs. Azuda. The Summer Dreamers Academy, and this is one again that we're seeing a decrease in funding for. The Wallace Foundation money, is that basically for research and not direct service? Is that supporting the research component?
Kate Reed Student Services, it's supporting both. It's supporting direct service with students' activities, as well as all the other things that you mentioned. So it's
So that's
a combination.
within the other services. I mean, what I'm taking a look at is the budget and how it's broken out, that the Fund for Excellence, that this particular grant is 1.86.
Correct.
And so when we go down to the 1.385, that includes some of the work that Wallace is supporting also.
Correct.
Because in the study that's being done by RAND, we're one of a couple districts in the country, correct?
We're one of 5 districts nationwide that was selected to be a part of this, yes.
So it's both direct service and the funded research component for this
Correct.
particular. Great, thank you. And on number 2, and I think the questions are good. I think that one of the things that is interesting about this, and I think it's great that the foundation community has stepped up, because they get questions and requests for funding from all kinds of out-of-school programs, which is one of the reasons that the United Way and the Foundation Committee put together a post, which is housed at the United Way, to try to coordinate out-of-school services around all of Allegheny County, including the city of Pittsburgh, correct? So that then fits into this, which is an effort from the community aspect to not only support what we're doing in the Pittsburgh Public Schools, which has been a big issue around this table, that when you're offering after-school programs, the children are getting support for the work that's going on during the day in the school, as well as other activities that might happen, right? As well as our staff throughout the district knowing what services are available to them. So this is driven by the foundation community in an effort to really focus with the community providers and the schools. And this is just for us, but there is a larger effort that does it throughout the entire county, correct? This being a piece of it.
Yeah, and the one thing I wanted to add, Mr. Eisler, is something that we have not been able to do well that is included in this position. A lot of our community organizations and faith-based organizations have asked us for training so that they align to the district's programs, but we haven't been able to coordinate that across so many different providers. And one of the things here is that they are very concerned to make sure that they're providing support for how students are learning and what, making the connection between the day program and then the services that they're providing in the after school. So it's another opportunity for us.
That's the one that I think most of us have been concerned about, is that the students who are participating in these after-school programs are really benefiting from support work for what's going on during the day, because they may not be able to get it all at home because of working parents and a lot of other issues. So I think that's great. I also think the support of the NFL and Procter & Gamble is great. I mean, the NFL and Steelers have helped us immensely in this district over the years, and it's good to see it still happening. And I just thank them. I mean, we usually do. This is the great part of the agenda where we really receive from the community at large. So thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you. Mr. McCray?
Just a kind of a quick question about number 5. I've had some very negative feedback about this. It doesn't seem like it's promoting diversity, but it's kind of working in reverse. This is the feedback I'm getting, and that the questions are designed to promote their philosophy and ensure that they have a job next time. So I think maybe we should reevaluate this and maybe get some more feedback from the people that have been through it. If you get a chance to do that, I appreciate it.
I will say that, well, I've been through it, and I think several people in this room have. One of the things that we make sure people understand as they begin this particular training is that because we're discussing highly sensitive topics, that it's going to be uncomfortable. I mean, it is. And so we try to make sure that people understand that the goal of this training is to push through that discomfort and get to the place where we can have conversations around some of the issues around serving our African American students well. And so, although I know there likely are some people that were made uncomfortable by it, I don't doubt that at all. I also know that we've gotten a lot of really positive feedback, some of that feedback has come from people who were uncomfortable, but realized that there were a lot of things around the issue of race they hadn't thought about, hadn't talked about, hadn't worked through. So I certainly agree, and I do believe we do fill out evaluations at the end of each session. So anyone who participates does have the opportunity to give us feedback around how it could be improved, what they thought about it, did they get anything out of it. So all participants do have that opportunity.
Could I kind of look at those evaluations and get back to these people and let them know what's going on? Can I have a look at the evaluation so I can like quell any kind of problems?
Ms. Shealy.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Just on number 2 with the after-school program coordinator, I understand that that position is an existing position, but how does that tie in? How does this position tie in, or does it at all tie into schools choosing to run after-school clubs or internal after-school activities that don't necessarily involve community partners?
I'm going to ask if Kate's still here, if she could come up and address that one. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah.
Kate Reed, I think your question was just specifically how does this person interface with some of those programs run at the school site? I guess I would say that the primary responsibility of this manager has been to work with the external organizations, community and faith-based. She does catalog and she is aware of a lot of the things that are going on in schools. And again, I think Dr. Lippert mentioned the matching process, but she doesn't oversee those programs, nor does she make the decisions about whether or not they exist.
So an individual school has the choice of running the programs that they choose to run.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. That's it for this section. Thank you.
Mr. Sumter?
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Excuse me. On number 1, that's the accepting a grant fund for excellence in public schools for the Summer Dreamers Academy. The biggest concern I have with this is that I feel that more equity needs to be infused in this element. And I say that in the sense that if we're dealing off of reduced funding, and if we have equity as a part of our beliefs and values and goals within this board, that when you reduce funding, equity means that you deal with the greatest need. So those students that are basic and below basic, to me, should have first preference for this program. And then after they're all exhausted, then go on to other students. The fact that there's a lottery concerns me. That all kids that need this work should be able to have it availed to them without going through a lottery, which means it's competition with students that don't have as great a need. That's not to say that those students shouldn't be helped or benefit over some programming over the summer to help them, get better in life. But in terms of if you're dealing with it from an equitable standpoint, then those students with the greatest need, if you have scarce resources, you should treat them. The other concern I have is that if there has been a successful summer program somewhere within the district and it's dealing with kids that have a great need, why would we not allow them to continue to operate? Why wouldn't it be such that if we're only dealing with the basic and below and not the kids that are above, then there would be funds left over for other programming if they're coming up with the same criteria as far as need for the students? And I go back to the example of Lincoln with the Freedom School there, with the success they've been having, what the complaints this board has been making about why isn't that district-wide, why isn't other schools availed to that program, how come they're successful, they've been successful. So those are the two concerns that I have, that if we're dealing with scarce funds, that we target it at those students that have the greatest need, and also those programs that are successful, if there's any way that they could continue, that we do that also. The other item, number 5, that's the Fund for Excellence in Pittsburgh Public Schools for Beyond Diversity. Let's not get confused with the terms, because diversity, if you look in the dictionary, can mean a lot of different things, just as integration in the old days had a lot of different meanings, or segregation, or whatever. I would suggest that all board members avail themselves of the training that's going on in this courageous conversations, and have that, the training, or just if we could film it, if we could put it on the website, if we can make information materials available to board members, it might help. I did attend one of the sessions. This element is not so much to promote diversity, but it is to instill justice and eliminate racism within the district. That's the problem. It's not that we have tall kids, short kids, fat kids, skinny kids, males, females. That's diverse. Old, young, that's diverse. If we have kids at one level and kids at another, that's injustice. That's another issue. It's not diverse. So to understand what is actually going on in these training sessions, and I would assume that folks that are counter to this training would have a problem with the training, because it's telling them about themselves and it's putting a mirror right in front of them as to what's going on. And the thing is, a lot of people, some people don't even understand what's going on, the dynamics of what's happening, the practices that are taking place. Some might feel that that's common, ordinary behavior, whereas if you're shown it in a different light, or you get it from a different perspective, or you see some examples of how things are happening, then you have a different, we would hope you would have a different appreciation for that and change your behavior or practices yourself. Each one in this room have had different experiences. And I know that you could probably talk about going into a department store, or going into a mall or a store like that. And what is the treatment? What kind of things happen to you? What kind of dynamics take place when you walk through the store? Some people get followed, some people don't. Some people get questions, some people don't. Some people get assistance, some people don't. Why? So those are the kind of things that they're trying to get at, the dynamics of what's going on in this society, to eliminate the injustices that are taking place. And everybody everywhere is talking about education being the social justice issue of our time at this point, that no matter what you do in life, the key to overcoming obstacles, barriers, problems is a good education. Thank you.
Mr. Brent.
I just had a quick question, and I wanted to just touch on what Mr. Sumter had mentioned, as well as Dr. Hawley. The question of equity, but also the question of the program that that was held at the after-school program at Lincoln. What was the cost of that program? Okay, but you wouldn't know, Doctor. The summer school program, right? Well, generally, I'm curious.
The Freedom School program was approximately $52,000 for just the Freedom School section. But Lincoln School had 3 programs actually going on simultaneously. No, 2 programs going on simultaneously in the summer. Freedom School was just one section, and then we used the RTI materials to support all of the other children that could not get into the Freedom School section of the summer school program. Then in the afternoon, all of the children were able to have the same types of activities that were given to us by the Freedom School model. And then in the evening, all of the parents were invited once a week to participate in read alouds, social justice activities for them and their children. So we had a full service model for summer school. Our summer school was quite expensive, but realizing that over 80% of our students attended summer school.
Well, I asked that question because, and Dr. Lane, I just want to suggest to you and Ms. Reed, if we can consider finding, I don't know if it's out of this grant, but finding a way, because we can solve two issues. Number one, we can promote the continuing a successful program. That program was in existence before the Summer Dreamers program, and it was successful. I actually remember we had a conversation around this table, and I'd asked questions about let's model ourselves after what they were doing at Lincoln. But at the same time, there were questions raised that there was no location in the East End. And I think we can solve two things: keep a successful program and also be able to identify a location. And so I want to suggest to you, Doctor, as well as Ms. Reed, if you would consider looking at keeping the program that was at Lincoln, but consider moving it to a centrally located place where it has some room to expand, making that your location in the East End. If we're able to identify those dollars, I think that we can kind of solve two issues at one time. If there's room for it to grow, using their model that was very successful, and that can be, if it's possible, a part of the Summer Dreamers, but at the same time, using the same workable, successful model. So I don't know if it's out of those dollars, or if we can entertain that, Doctor, or if not, keep in the back of your mind, and let's not close the door on it, because I think we can solve two issues with that. And it just made me think about it, I think, when Mr. Sumter raised the point about equity, and when funds are dwindling, and it's a good point, that if a child who's in need and needs the services more, he or she now has got to wait and hope that their number is pulled to be able to be considered. If that is the lottery system, explain it. Okay, maybe it's a different.
I think we do need to clarify what we meant by a lottery system. Because we know that we have far fewer seats in Summer Dreamers this coming summer than we've had in the past, that's why there's a lottery. But the seats that are available will be first available to the kids that need them the most, the kids whose achievement levels are lower.
Okay, so let's just say East End, there's going to be a total, let's say 500 seats. We will go to, or 250 seats will be set aside. Or my question, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Doc. I'm just trying to find out to answer his question, because when the lottery was mentioned, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. It's like our other magnet programs in terms of a lottery system. I guess saying that we're going to go to the kids who are in need first is one thing, but what will be the system used to guarantee that the neediest students are getting those seats first? And how do we determine it? Is it a percentage off the top, or how do you determine that?
Mr. Bentley, and Ms. Reed, I know is listening, so if I say something that's inaccurate, please correct me. But as I understand it, we have more kids that, if we looked at kids that are basic and below basic, we have more kids in that group than we have seats for. Okay? So the lottery is among the kids that need it. It's not just district-wide. Now, is that correct? Yes. So you have to qualify for it first, and then there's the lottery. So the kids who are eligible to participate in the lottery are all eligible based on the fact that they are the kids that need it the most.
Okay, I'm confused, but I take your word. But let me just say this, and while you're here, Ms. Reed, with this grant, is it something that you would consider, knowing the history of the Freedom School that was at Lincoln, about the possibility of keeping that program in place, but having a larger location where it can expand, and maybe identifying that as the East End School, while at the same time tying it in and making it a part of the Summer Dreamers program? If the dollars are $50,000 and if it was $100,000 to allow it to expand, that would cover that whole region for you, and then making it a part. Is that something that this grant would allow a little bit of wiggle room or flexibility? Or can it be, if not, it would just be considered as a standalone, separate program?
Mr. Brentley, I think the problem we have is the grant is specifically for the Summer Dreamers program. And so the plan has been submitted. It has been funded based on what we asked for. So again, we have a situation where we have funding to support a specific program that we can't then now take that money and use it for something else. And so that would be the issue that we, that I, sitting here right now today, don't have a good answer in terms of how we would do it. Because right now, we know that originally Summer Dreamers was supported by the stimulus funds, the ARRA money, and that's gone. So the Wallace Foundation did agree to partially support this program, as did the Fund for Excellence. And then we do have a portion of, a small portion, 400,000 out of our Title I funds, I believe, that's helping. So we kind of had to cobble together the money pretty much this year to support it as it is. So I wouldn't want to sit here and lead you to believe that we could figure out a way how to expand it or add another site. I wasn't privy to all the discussion that went on around location, but I know one of the things that's been problematic in the past is, one, air conditioning, and two, is summer work that's going on in a school. So we have to avoid the sites that are going to be under some construction, and then as we learned last summer with a couple of really hot days where we had to cancel school, that we really do want to the extent we possibly can, be an air-conditioned site. So, so I'm not saying we won't look at it, but I wouldn't want you to lead you or anyone to believe that we think we could, easily solve it and satisfy you on this
Okay,
one.
let me just close with these comments on that. Then, and I understand if your dollars is what's presented to us is what was presented for the proposal. I understand that. Well, then I guess the challenge is, and I would like for you, if you can, to consider if we can identify those funds or some additional funds because the program was successful. Over the last couple of years, and I've raised some of the concerns. Sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot. We have something that works and we know that it's reaching that target, and then we shut it down. And so I'm just suggesting that we know that that program worked, and it was wonderful in that East End side of the community. So if there are opportunities for additional grants out there, or for anybody else who's interested in even watching and want to support a wonderful program when they contact you, I'm only asking that you consider it. I'm not asking you to reopen the application here or to change your dollars here. Just consider that. And the final point on that is that I've had comments at this table last year around the Summer Dreamers program on the importance of diversity when we go for the service providers that participate in the program. And I just want to stress that again, that we make sure we did not do a good job last year. And so I'm going to ask that we really reach out, and if not, I'd be more than happy to help direct the staff to some individuals and organizations that would be ready, willing, and able to participate and be great service providers. It's a short period, but it's still a wonderful opportunity for some who have mastered their craft, so to speak, and would love to participate. So, but I would be more than happy to help out in identifying or finding a creative way. $50,000, $100,000 doesn't seem much for a program that we know that works. So, thank you.
Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. The administration needs to be commended for at least putting together the funding and the wherewithal to operate a Summer Dreamers Academy in spite of the fact that we've had the loss of the other funding. The one question I had is whether or not a location in the east, say at Faison or another place, could offset the transportation cost. Whether that would be, would that help, maybe, or maybe not.
On the location, we certainly can talk it through again, but since I wasn't actually privy to the review that the team did around possible locations, I can't speak to that. But as I said to Mr. Brentley, we certainly can take a look at it.
I was thinking time-wise, sitting on a bus, things like that, to be taken into consideration. The other thing is whether or not there's any best practices from the summer program that was operated at Lincoln that could be infused in the Summer Dreamers Academy throughout the district that would help also.
And I think we tried to be upfront about that from the very beginning, that before Summer Dreamers ever started, they did speak with the folks that were working on it, did learn a lot from the program in Lincoln. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Dr. Hawley's next, then you can.
Oh, no, I'm fine now.
Oh, you're fine now? Okay. Mrs. B.
If one location for the program was oversubscribed and another location was undersubscribed, and I'm speaking only the kids like below basic that are really needy, would it be feasible to offer the children who couldn't get into the geographic location of their choice to go to another? Would transportation-wise, would it be feasible?
I don't have a good answer for that right now. As I think about these sites, they are a long way apart. So we'd have kids on buses for a long, long time. But, as I said, we can certainly look at that.
Well, I'm just thinking of ways to get the services to the kids, and it would be their choice, but, it is an option if it's doable from a transportation standpoint.
Thank you. And I would like to add my concern with having a site on the east end, because if a child is on a bus too long, we're less likely to see them for the length of the program, and we haven't gained anything. We might have saved $50,000 or something by going down to 3 sites, but if the kids that are most in need aren't on that bus because the ride's too long, we haven't saved anything. So I would like to add my concern to those already voiced. Moving on, we will go to consultants and contracted services, numbers 7 through 10 on the pink pages, and we'll start with you, Mr. Brentley.
Just a quick question on number 8. This is for the new teacher center with a consultant out of North Carolina. And just a silly question. Nobody locally here capable of providing these services to the district?
Mr. Brentley, this isn't a person. This is actually an organization that supplies multiple resources to us, including the actual survey itself, the cost of the survey itself.
Okay, let me rephrase my question. No organization locally here in Pittsburgh or in the region that could deliver these services, maybe at a cheaper cost?
Not that we're aware of. My understanding of this, and I think, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but this organization, this is the first year that we're actually incurring costs, because for the previous 2 years, Gates was actually funding in their intensive partnership sites, which Pittsburgh, of course, is one, this service. And this is the first year that we're actually picking up the costs, and it looks like a mixed funding stream out of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant and also from a Heinz grant.
Okay. Now, you say this is affiliated with the Gates money, or okay.
This is supported by our Gates grant, yes.
Okay. Are we obligated with those dollars to use certain contractors or certain providers at all?
No, I think part of the process that we were involved in when we actually submitted our proposal, one of the benefits is that we do get access to, nationally well-recognized, well-researched organizations, um, groups that are very well-respected in the education community, and this is one group, the New Teacher Center, that is very well-respected. And this actually focuses on one of our strategic initiatives in the Gates in our Empowering Effective Teachers work around the teaching and learning environment specifically.
Okay. Well, I just, need to raise the questions. Well, I'm going to continue to raise those questions. I know that we have folks who are in this area, this region, if asked or given an opportunity, if there's an RFP put out, that they would be more than willing to apply. Some can probably provide the services, if not do just as well or better. So I just want to continue to raise that question. That's all I have in this section. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Fink. Dr. Hawley.
Sorry. I also want to ask about number 8. This is the Teaching and Learning Environment Survey, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. What did you actually do with the results from that survey?
I'm glad that you asked. And this is one of the reasons that we are actually now going to continue to pay for it. First 2 years was out of consultant. And when we see results from a survey, it means that we put in actionable steps and actually see a difference. And I do have some information that on our from our first survey, and you were principal at the time, that we are very concerned about teacher voice, and we want to hear about teacher voice. Mm-hmm. And so this was a lot of information. Some of it that we were kind of not so happy with the results in terms of like learning that we didn't, in some cases, teachers felt they didn't have adequate time or adequate supplies. We're happy to say on the second administration that there were significant improvements in all of those constructs. What we've done in addition, and specifically, is have schools develop plans, implementation plans that the assistant superintendents monitor that actually go into our getting results plan around how are they going to deal with these issues around either time or leadership. And they do actual plans, and the latest data of the 71 constructs, there were 46 that showed improvement. We just met as an academic team to go through that data again to say when it was working, what did they do? Where we didn't work, what was their plan? Let's review it. And so that when we're able to actually see where it works, that we can show improvements in the learning environment, we want to pick up on those best practices and share them with places that are not working. In addition to that, we also look at leveraging our support in places where we see teaching and learning environment needs help. So we look at, for example, a learning environment specialist might be needed there, or additional assistant superintendent help. So we've done a lot. This is not one of these surveys where we take it and put it on the shelf. This is one of these surveys where we've had some of the largest number of teacher responses increase from the first time. So it seems like teachers see a value in this. Because they didn't, they wouldn't take it. We can't force them. And we actually see increased percentages. And so they see an increased value in it. And we've also seen actionable results. So it's a very positive survey with good results that we've seen so far.
So exactly what plans are developed? Where do they put these implementation plans? Are they in their getting results documentation, or where?
They're in the getting results documentation, but they're also a separate document that we review and that we go through. So it's not just living there, it's also living in other places. The teaching and learning liaisons help work on the documents. They bring them to the meetings. We talk about them. We have a PD around the constructs about if there were issues around teachers felt they didn't have time, then all the people who are working on that issue can then start to collaborate and work on, well, what are you doing in your building that works? What are you doing? So the plans are really not just housed somewhere. They are accessible, but they're a living, working document that is accessible in the getting results plan and also at the building level, that we also collect them here and go through them. And as a matter of fact, I believe it was last week that we just reviewed them all again about implementation, because they have the principals are now, the teaching term, leadership terms are submitting them again to us about what is your progress. So it's something that we're actually really latched onto. We're very concerned about teaching and learning environment and want to see improvements.
The reason why I'm asking is because the district in the past did their own survey, which is very similar to this particular instrument as well. The teachers did one, the principals did, all the role groups, the parents had the opportunity, the students did, and the survey information was sent to us. And I think that was done in-house. And it didn't cost, well, probably did cost something. I don't know how much it cost. But it certainly didn't cost the $137,000. I was just wondering what would be the difference in going back to that particular, those particular instruments as opposed to this one. I mean, I don't know. You could tell
Yeah, and
me.
we actually, we did talk about it. We wanted, before you do something, you want to look at all the other things. Those surveys, because I also have experience with those surveys, we got very low return on those surveys, did not get us the information, and did really not get to the level of this detail where they're able to identify different constructs that are actionable. Those were things where we asked about opinions, very, very low return rate, and nothing that was really, they were not set up in a way that was actionable. They typically got filed on a shelf, you looked at them, and there really was no additional follow-up. The benefit of this is that there's a lot of research behind. When we have certain patterns, what are the action steps a school can take? So this tab is here for us to learn right now from this group, so that we can, moving forward, be able to do this on our own.
Are you telling me then that this particular survey gives you recommendations on what to do, rather than the other survey, which we really had to sit down as a group and we looked at the data? The data is not going to change from instrument to instrument. You either have a good relationship with your teachers or you don't, and it shows. And you had to do something about that. But are you telling me that this survey gives you recommendations on what you need to do to support?
Well, it really puts it into construct. So it doesn't tell you what to do. Every school is different, and then you have to share best practices. So it really is, what it does is organize it into constructs that was not in those previous surveys. So, and we can get you more information. It might be helpful for you to look at the survey.
Yes, I probably
and you can look at some of the
do need to
plans.
look at it to
That
see
would be
how.
helpful.
That's it for me in this section.
Mr. Eisler?
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. My questions have been answered.
Mr. McCray?
Just real quick, on number 10, this is for the dentist. Do we typically put out an RFP for this, or do we negotiate it every year with the same person?
I know that this is the same person that we've had since I've been in the district, so I am not sure. I believe that he every year works in a way that's satisfactory to us, and we just continue in this contract with him. He provides great service.
Well, the subject has come up in the past about RFPing things. I just saw this hadn't been RFP'd for a while. Thank you. That's all.
Mr. Sumter?
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. On number 8, that's the new teacher center. The only question I have is regarding the contract. Is the contract with the district, or is the contract with the Office of Student Support Services?
Contract with the district, the Office of Student Support Services is not a legally contracting entity.
Okay, I was just going by, it says board authorization is requested for the Office of Student Support Services to enter into a contract with.
Well,
that
I mean, I
entity.
think School District Pittsburgh would be the party that has the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we'll go to payments authorized. It's the blue pages, numbers 11 through 15. Dr. Lippert.
Thank you. Before we get too far into this section, we did want to pull item number 15. Item number 15 is the SAT bulk, and we'll be bringing that forward, I believe, next month with some revisions for you. So number 15, SAT bulk, is pulled for this month.
Thank you. We'll start with you, Mr. Brentley. The blue pages, number 11 through 15.
Yes, I only have one comment here. This is for number 13, and just another thank you to Need and the Omega Psi Phi fraternity for their involvement in the Historically Black College tour. And I glanced over the numbers. It looks like we're seeing an increase. And yes, it looks like we're seeing an increase. And Dr. Artun, I just wanted to suggest if there's a way where you can put out a filler to the principals about the event. Last year we came close, and I was able to identify I think it was 3 or 4 of the handheld video cameras, and I'm going to try to access them again, but if I can get them and sign them over to a couple of students. And I'm wondering if we can encourage a couple of the students who will be participating on the tour to do their own video. What's it called? Somebody give me the term. What's, no, the video thing. Videography of their sites at the different historically black colleges, turn back around and maybe make it a project for some of our seniors here. And then next year, use that as a tool to promote next year's tour. So if there's an opportunity, we can share that, and if there any ones are interested, and I can try to identify them, those recorders again, if they can sign for them. But I think it'd be a wonderful tour. I think it would be awfully historic for our students to actually stand on some of the ground of some of the great African-American leaders throughout the country, and even if they decide not to attend the historically black college. So if that's a possibility, I can look and make that available, or try to see if it's still available, and then share that with you and share it to principals who can then turn it over to responsible students. So once again, just wanted to say thank you to Need. Come on, give me Sylvester Pace, and then the Omega Psi. I'm not sure who the chapter. I know that Mr. Campbell is a member, so we want to say thank you to you two as well. He's a member of the Omega Psi Phi, so we want to say thank you for that. So thank you. That's all I have.
Mrs. Khaleesi.
I just have a quick comment on, well, actually, I want to respond to that one. Just to the sake of using cameras, Mr. Burnley, you want to make sure that we have the signatures and the okays, because we don't need them on YouTube doing other things, okay? So on number 14, Dr. Tua, you're something, man. I asked the question because the way I read this board tab was that we were donating, or we were purchasing something that we were getting donated. It made no sense to me whatsoever. And here, if we would have just put the amount of money in the payment data box, I would have realized that you were purchasing the flowers and then donating it after the event. So that is why I asked the question, because I didn't catch that, okay? So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink.
I just want to say that number 11, the what do they call it now, Art Connection program. This is a really wonderful program and an opportunity. One of my daughters participated in that starting when she was a student at Overbrook, and it was called the Tam O'Shanners. And I simply hope they change the time, because showing up at the museum at 7:30 on a Saturday morning isn't all that it's cracked up to be. A lot of parents rise like zombies from their cars and wait for the cafeteria out there to open, looking for coffee. But it's a really wonderful program, and the kids get a great deal out of it. And I just wanted to say that I have firsthand knowledge of it, and I really appreciated the time and effort that they spent with the kids.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley.
I too want to say thank you to Need and Omega Psi Phi for giving the students this opportunity. As a former principal, I also attended one of the Black College tours. Some of my students went many years ago, a few years ago, and it was really an outstanding opportunity for the children from the city of Pittsburgh. And we were also able to meet other groups that were bringing children like we were on the tour. But I want everybody to understand that even though it's a historically black college, many of these universities and colleges are well diverse. So the children are getting the opportunity to see that as well. So I am really pleased that the district has entered into this agreement with Need and Omega Psi Phi, and I want to thank them for giving the children this wonderful, wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Eisler.
Thanks, Mrs. Azuda. Thanks, Dr. Holly, for bringing that up, because I think that's important, and I think that it really is a tremendous opportunity. I think what's great is not only has this been going on for many, many years, and I hate to, it's a long, no, but we've been doing it with them. I mean, our students have been participating, because I think what's great is we get to see the increase or decrease. As Mr. Brantley pointed out, there's more students going this year than last year, which is important, and I just think it's a great opportunity. And I did have a question on 15. I just hope, because this whole SAT thing, and I bring it up every year, that every school does get to participate, because I think it's just like everything else we do in terms of getting kids Promise Ready, that whatever opportunities we can, I should say whatever obstacles we can put aside for these students, we're doing them a great service. And so as we try to, and I understand money is very difficult these days, but I do think that when it comes back, I hope it is including all the schools. And then the other question I have is on 11, with the Carnegie program, it's going to serve a set amount of students, I believe 100. Do we get more applications than we can handle? Do we have to turn students away?
We typically don't. We have up to 100, and currently they're serving about 91 students.
Thank you. Mr. McCray?
Just a quick comment on number 13, and just for the record, this is open to all students in the district, am I correct? I hear yes. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Shealy. Mr. Sumter?
I was going to say, or echo the same comments that Mr. McCray had. The thing is, folks, I mean, we don't have a white college tour, so I only say it in the sense that you can get a quality education at a lot of these institutions, and all students should avail themselves of that opportunity and to learn, just to, you know, see what it's all about. Some of these colleges, if you know, like Spelman, that's named after Lucy Spelman, which was John Rockefeller's sister, so, or his wife or sister, whichever. That's who it's named after. But I'm just a little bit taken back that Morgan State's not on here, but other than that, it's a good opportunity for children, and we should not let the titles get in the way of quality education or learning or availing ourselves of what is, you know, if we're to be this great society, to take advantage of these opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the general authorizations. They're the yellow pages, and Dr. Lippard wants to talk first.
We do have one correction, and we also have an addition to this section, so I'll take you to the correction first. If you could flip to item number 20, it's the Career and Technical Education addendum to the regional CTE plan. And I'm going to explain to you the actual correction, and then we'll go actually into the tab and we'll make the correction together. The correction is going to be made in the North Cluster, and this involves the CTE programs that are moving to Perry. And the way that you receive the information in your tab, we intended to keep health careers at the Oliver building, even though the program is assigned to Perry. What we were able to do over this week, thanks to facilities working with Principal Sacco, is that we're going to move health careers into the Perry building. So I'm going to take you into the amended items so that we can get this correct. If you go to the back page of the actual yellow tab and you look at the amended item, I'm not going to read the first couple sentences, so I'm going to start with the sentence that starts, regions include. And in the second line, it starts to be bold lettering. And it says, North Cluster, Pittsburgh Perry High School. Due to the closing of Pittsburgh Oliver, the following changes will occur. Open business, finance, and information technology programs at Pittsburgh Perry High School. Open health careers technology program, which will be assigned at Pittsburgh Perry. Then you have parentheticals. You're going to cross out school of record, but will be housed in the Oliver building, and that's going to take you to the semicolon. So what we're saying is that we will open health careers technology program. It will be housed at Perry, and we're taking out the fact that it's going to be in the Oliver building. It's going to be in the Perry building. Is everybody okay? Now, the second change on this is if you look at the chart, because there was a chart included. You have the East region cluster. In the middle of that table is the South region, and then we go to the North region, which is where this change is occurring. In the North region, the BFIT program, culinary arts, cosmetology, and health careers. Health careers has those two little stars. Those stars get removed because what the stars mean, and it applies to just the culinary arts and cosmetology programs, those two programs remain at the Oliver building. We cannot fit them into the Perry building, but your BFIT and your health careers actually are housed in the Perry building. Okay. Okay, they want me to go a little bit further because we have to follow this all the way through the packet. So if you look down where you carry the little footnote down to the note section, so we corrected it in the table. You crossed out the two little stars for the health careers. You have to go to the note section and you would cross out, it says the culinary arts, cosmetology, and health careers. You just cross out health careers. We thought it was a minor change given what this tab is doing, that we thought it would be easier to correct it than print out a whole new tab and confuse the board as to why you were getting another tab after we mailed it to you on Friday. Okay? So I have to do one more because we did have a late walk on, and I do apologize for this. Number 21, there were two magnet programs that sorry, it's in the orange folder. Orange folder number 21. Last month, we did not include the movement of two magnet programs that were impacted at Langley and also at Oliver. So the Oliver program, the Oliver school had a magnet program called Langley Teacher Academy. That program is moving to the Brashear building following the students. That's one part of the tab. The second part of the tab is that there is a JROTC program. You can see these programs have been in existence for a really long time. The JROTC has been with us in the district since 1978. That program will be moving to the Perry building and housed within the Perry building. So the Langley Teacher Center will actually be able to go to Brashear, and the JROTC program will actually go to the Perry building. Okay. And then we can now open it up to questions, Ms. Suzuta. Those were the changes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brantley, we'll start with you.
It's pretty much confused, so thank you. Let me act like I know what I'm talking about. Just a simple question, Mr. Camarda, we have walked through logistically the fit for Perry, well, for both changes to Perry and Brashear, I'm sure, has no problem with the fit, but we have.
That's absolutely correct, and we had one more additional visit at both Brashear and at Perry today.
Okay, and when we say fit, I'm not talking about just fitting, but still the opportunity for movement, a little bit of cushion, and so on. And so what will you be doing to let the public know, the community know, that these programs are now available, and it is a part of what was once offered at Oliver, but now at Perry?
Mr. Brantley, Lisa Fischetti, I'll answer that for you. We are planning to do a household mailer to all families once we have all of these moving parts approved by the board. So last month we had a lot of things that you approved. This month we're bringing these magnet programs, and we already have the mailer ready to go. So once we get approval on this, everybody will get this information. Additionally, each school that has children impacted, each school, we're working with every school, that the principal of that school will also be doing a very customized letter particular to the children of their school. Additionally, we will go onto the website where we have the offerings and options guide, and we will make the changes there as well for these magnet programs. We will also be doing press releases and alert now messages.
Okay.
And if you have any other ideas, let us know.
I was going to just suggest that I think mailers are okay, but there are still some that it just goes above their head because they say they get so many of them. I wanted to suggest maybe placing it on the local PTOs and PSCC meetings, and maybe placing it on their agenda and doing it in a video recorder or something to let them know that this is how it fits, this is what you can see, but also sharing the same information with those schools that will be feeding into, and primarily I believe Allegheny will still be feeding into Perry, if I'm not mistaken. And so that would be important to get that message through, especially to the 7th and 8th graders who would eventually be feeding into Perry, knowing that these other programs are now available there. And I'm sure likewise for the feeder pattern for Brashear, letting them know that those new additions will be available as well. So, and then how do you address the status of the half magnet? Last month you mentioned that Perry would have a half magnet status. What is that?
I think I said partial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Partial, half.
And what we
Piece,
mean.
Piece, less than whole. Okay.
Right, yeah. What we would mean by that is even though students on the north side, that is their attendance area, that is their school, that students around the district also can enroll in Perry as part of the magnet program on a space available basis.
Okay. Okay, I had something else, but I'll let it go on that one. I think there was one thing, but that's it for now.
Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. I'd like to start with this item simply because it kind of really caught my attention. You know, we close the school and then we're going to leave it open for a couple of programs. Is that really financially smart?
Well, as you may remember, it's not just a couple of programs. We're putting another school in there. McKnocker is going to move into the building. So McKnocker will be there. The programs that you see here this evening, as well as staff out of Overbrook. So McKnocker closes, Overbrook closes, and all of that goes into the Oliver facility.
Okay, so we're going to have left what at Oliver as far as CTE programs? What's left?
Cosmetology and culinary arts.
And you're telling me that Perry did not have enough room to put at least one of those two programs?
We tried. We really tried.
So instead of having high school kids get on a bus, which is what they're going to do for half a day, because I don't know how else you're going to do this, especially for cosmetology, because you have hours you have to put in. That's too much time they're going to lose in the traveling.
They'll lose for any CT program, when kids move, we allot one period. Now, the shuttle between Perry and Oliver, it's a quick one because it's close. So I believe, Angela, we're starting that they would move down after first period. Do you want to address how they're going to move? She can provide details, but students never lose more than one period.
Yes, the students will only lose one period of travel time, and actually it's going to be shorter than one period because the distance is shorter. And it was really cost prohibitive. We really looked at the Perry building, at the space, and the cosmetology lab is extremely expensive to move, as you know. And we also looked at the culinary arts, and both of those labs are really state-of-the-art that are at Oliver. And to move them in P could come, but was really cost prohibitive to move them. And there also, I think, was limited space, and I'll let him comment on that.
So what made you choose these programs to be moved and not those? What was the decision maker?
You mean the ones how did Health Careers and BFIT were the two that we moved out? Is that what you mean, or?
Well, I thought JR, I thought it was staying there, but two, I thought they had to apply to be moved.
Okay, so let's not confuse. JROTC is tab 21, and it's not under CTE.
Yeah, that's not.
Okay, but I'll address JROTC as well. Basically, the BFIT program and the health careers. The BFIT program, because it requires a computer lab, we already had space at Perry, so it was a very inexpensive move. And you didn't have to recreate a lot of space for that program. The health careers was already moving from Langley. So we're moving it from Langley, and if you're moving it from Langley to either the Oliver Building or to the Perry Building, the cost that you incur to move it would be approximately the same. And Principal Sacco was able to identify an acceptable space that hopefully will actually be less money than if we moved it into the Oliver Building.
Okay, so the business and or the information technology, I guess, is the one I'm thinking of. The business and finance is different than the technology, the information technology, which is the one that you said that you needed a lab for.
Well, Angela can get into the difference. I call it the BFIT program, like the BFIT. Business finance, they're all related.
But it says business, finance, information technology. Is that all one course?
Those are all business programs, but they are 3 different separate programs. We will start with one program depending on the number of students who show interest, and we're going to do a survey to figure out which one we will start with. I also wanted to make a comment that the space...
Whoa, I'm sorry, Miss Mike. Go back. Say that again.
BFIT consists of 3 programs: business, finance, and information technology.
Okay.
We will survey the students within that building to see which one there's the most interest in and start with that program.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Also, we have 3 business labs that are already at Perry High School that are functional and already have computers and drops in the room. So there's no cost incurred for having the business programs at Perry.
So in those classrooms they already have at Perry, are they being used right now?
Yes, 2 of the labs I believe are being used for business elective classes, but not for a CTE 3-period program.
So what are you going to do? Kick out those kids to put in these kids? How's that going to work?
No, there's enough space to offer the business elective and also the CTE program.
Space and time, or just space?
Space and time, depending on student schedules and what they choose.
So we're going to have culinary arts and cosmetology in the Oliver Building, and we're going to move the rest of it up to Perry.
Yes, 2 programs remain at Oliver. Now that Perry supervises that program, but 2 programs would then be housed in the Oliver Building.
I really wish that this would have been something we would have had a better discussion about before it came here like this. I really do, because I'm uncomfortable with this, because CTE, it means a lot to me, and I just feel like we just keep throwing it around and moving it around and shoving it around, and we don't have anything really set and solid. We just keep pushing things around, and if a kid wants to do this, well, we'll shove them on a bus to do. It's like disappointing. It's very, very disappointing. And if we don't want to take CTE serious, let's just dump it. Let's just dump it and take the money and use it to do something else with it. This is very, very disappointing. To leave 2 programs down at Oliver, it's just, I'd love to know how many kids will take advantage of this. How many? Do we have any idea?
The cosmetology program at this time is full at Oliver.
How many?
There's about 40-something students in the program, and I can get you the exact number. The culinary arts program is not full at Oliver at this time, and I think there's approximately about 25 students in that program.
Could I comment?
Sure.
The one thing, we did have a lot of deliberation around bringing this tab forward, and the reason why we brought it forward is because last month, because of the school consolidation and schools closing, we had some programs, CTE programs, magnet programs that were hanging out there, and we did want to wrap it up so that you could see what it actually looked like in terms of the CTE plan, because you had several revisions to this plan going forward, as you can see on the front of the tab, how many times it was, amended. And so although you're probably right, it would have been ideal to do an education committee or something on it, we felt that we had to tie off these loose ends because things were hanging out there. And we were concerned as we submit the plan to the state that we didn't have the full picture in place based on the school closures.
I'm sure you'll come back next month with another change. Also on number 20, I mean, I did ask this question in writing. I really wasn't happy with the answer. So, can you explain this block in the middle of the page? Explain to me what item number is, page number is. What is that? I mean, there's a spreadsheet sort of thing in the middle. It says the title, item number, page number, date.
Are you on item 20?
Yes.
Okay, so
Front page.
this is what I think it is. And
you think?
Yes, it is. This takes us through all of the items that were board approved in our legislative packets that related to the amended items that we're putting forward. So it follows all of the CT changes that would impact the CTE model or program throughout from 2010, May 26, 2010, until we get to last month's board meeting, November 22nd. So it follows through any time that you took action that would amend the CTE plan.
So we've amended it 8 times in a year, a little over a year.
That's not the actual amendments to the CTE plan, but there's things in there that impacted the plan, which now is coming forward for, almost like a revision because you had school reconfigurations that impacted the CTE plan, as an example.
Okay, but that still tells me 8 times in the last year and a half that we've actually done something in the CTE program.
That impacted it, that is correct. That is correct.
So, I mean, exactly what I said. I hate to, and there's no amount in this data box. You're going to tell me that this is going to cost us absolutely nothing to do?
I think that this is the plan itself, but the cost to actually move a program would be in the business section.
Is it in there?
It will be as we bring items forward, yes.
Well, you are bringing an item forward. I mean, you just told us you're going to move 2 programs to Perry. Isn't there a cost to this?
Right now, we're working on our plan to bring those items forward for whatever contracts we have to let to accomplish those moves. Yes.
So, I looked at also the answer that you gave me on number 20, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to take so long. I know I'm getting looks, and I don't mean to be, but, so I asked her this question on the thing, and the answer I get is, the revised CTE plan would benefit, and I quote, any high school student in grades 10 through 12 who choose to participate in any CTE regional business, finance, whatever, or signature programs. Does that mean that any student from 10 to 12th grade who is allowed to attend any of those regional centers will be accepted?
I believe so. We try to have students in the region, if they're in the region, they typically keep their academics at their home school, and then they travel to the cluster, wherever the cluster location is, to take advantage of the CTE program. My understanding is that if a student from another region wants to go to, let's say, Brashear, cosmetology, and they live in the southwest, that they would then be able to be enrolled in that school in that region. So, in essence, students do have access across the district to all of these programs. And currently we do have space in the program, and we're willing and able to grow the program. So we're looking to, as we pull the programs into schools and try to not have the satellites other than the all-over location, we would anticipate that enrollment would go up. in the programs. And same thing with retention and completion of the workforce certification.
Miss Mike, how many students do you have in either the culinary or the cosmetology that are outside of the region or outside of the feeder pattern of Oliver?
Are you speaking of a specific school? Because we have culinary arts, one in each region.
I was
and
referring to those. Oh, you have culinary art in each region?
one per region. We have 3 regional programs, the culinary arts, the business programs, and the health careers. And there's one in each region so students can take advantage of those programs, and that's why they're called regional programs. The signature programs, or the programs that are like one of a kind, or maybe there's just 2, like cosmetology, for instance.
So basically what I'm hearing and seeing as time goes on, especially as I see this, is that we're slowly getting away from any signature program. We're just going to have these 2 or 3 regional ones, and that's it. I mean, that's what it looks like it's happening here. I mean, that's what it looks like. I mean, we got rid of welding last month, and now this, so I'm sorry. Okay, I'm done with that one. Just...
Now I'll pretty much pick up where Teresa left off because
I wasn't done.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm
Wasn't done.
sorry. You want to finish? Go ahead. I'll wait.
I thought JROTC had to be applied to be moved.
I'm not 100% certain on that. We're in conversation now that we made the decision to be able to actually move it to the Perry Building and have the space in the Perry Building. One of the things that the board has to understand that I recently understand about this as well is that this is an elective program. It does not run the way your CTE programs run, that you take your academics and then spend a large portion of your day, 3 periods, in the program. It runs on singletons, so every single period you have a different group of students. So that would mean that if we were not able to move it into the Perry Building, we'd be shuttling children back and forth all day long to take advantage of the program. The other complication with JROTC remaining at the Oliver site is that they have a lot of extracurricular activities that go along with the students that take advantage of this elective. And so students would then, they might have second period JROTC, travel down first period, travel back third period, lose 2 periods out of their day because of travel, and then have to travel back down to take advantage of the extracurricular activities. So we really felt that for such a great program that has been in our district and that students have had an enormous amount of success, that in order to keep this program at the level that it currently is running, the best way to do that is to find a way to have it housed in the Perry Building. And Principal Sacco was aware of the program because she was an Oliver administrator before she took some other positions in the district, and feels that the location that she has identified for us would be very appropriate. It gives them access in and out of the building, access to be able to do their drills. So that's really the logic behind the program. We really feel that if we don't move it, that the program isn't going to be able to be as well subscribed to as it currently is.
So
we had the commander there today, Colonel Cacciatore was with us today at the site. We looked at the location is, and at all points, everybody loves the home they're in today and never likes moving all the time. But he is a good soldier. We're good soldiers, and we know how that'll work, and it'll work out well there. And it'll serve the students because of the amount of service time they receive of instruction. I mean, they do not receive 3-period blocks of time. Right. So it's very difficult to move them out of the building and back. At one point, the program was only 1 period at a time, but I think this is the first year where it's an 80-minute block, and that's a real skinny period of time to move students back and forth. And so we had them in the location today. We know how we're going to be able to make the modifications to make it work.
Well, how much is this going to cost to move?
I don't think it's going to cost much, and we're looking at what the overall costs are going to be. I don't think it's going to be significant.
So how come this overrated the other programs? Why is this one better than the other ones to be moved?
Because of the space that we're putting this in, the space that was available, and how Principal Sacco was able to realign the building. Those 2 other programs that stay there, they are very expensive programs to construct and to build. She was not going to be able to have a space for a culinary arts program to assemble the classroom she needed, and the venting you would need for the building. You're going to run into the walls, and you know what happens when you run into our buildings and have to disrupt walls for venting. Those were going to be problems for the culinary program. And we also talked about what it takes to move the students. And when we look at ourselves and compare to what other school districts do within Allegheny County to go to centers and move their students, we're within an 8-minute bus ride from Perry to Oliver, because we're
Yeah,
going to
but
have to move the students.
that's the only students, it's if you're only serving those students,
But that,
yes.
I believe they would be, well, from the north students. The other programs that are offered are all within the regions, and my understanding is they would avail themselves to Westinghouse if that's the area they're in, or they would be a Carrick if that's the area if they're in the south, because they all three of the regions have those programs. I thought that was the intent.
All three do not have all of those programs. You're incorrect. And you know what, okay, that's all right, that's fine. I just want to understand why one program gets chosen over another. Cost. Not interest in what could make something for that student later on in life. Cost.
Well, these are programs that we currently have, so trying to make, because we have, Angela cited that we have, good interest right now in culinary arts and in cosmetology currently, that those would be programs that we'd still want to maintain. That doesn't limit us as we move forward, which you ask us to do, is really bring forward, moving, how are we going to move forward with career and technical education in the district, and look at if we are going to add programs, what would those programs be? I know Dr. Lane had mentioned conversations with Dr. Crenshaw at Westinghouse and potentially expanding the portfolio of CTE programs at Westinghouse. And when you look at doing that type of expansion, we would most certainly take into interest, what are the job trends in the area, and also what student interests are to do that. So
I'll put money on it. Within 2 years, you come back and close those two programs in Oliver. I'm done. Thank you.
Mrs. Khaleesi, I apologize that I moved on before. Okay, Mrs. Fink.
Okay. We're going to move the HVAC to Brashear. Where in the Brashear building are we going to locate this?
It's going in the former, there was a suite of classrooms that had a home economics class and a culinary arts classroom that stopped being utilized last year. There was not an 11-12 program. There are ventilation hoods. It's going to make it easier to modify. It's on the.
Oh, go ahead. It's on what floor?
It's on the 3rd floor.
Okay. And how do we plan to get supplies up to the 3rd floor for a program that by its very nature creates some noise? How are we going to logistically service that program on the 3rd floor of Brashear High School?
To bring the materials in that they need, we know we were going to put a double door in to enter into what was the classroom area. We know we have the regular elevator that would be needed to be used to move the equipment up. We worked with Mrs. Mike and her staff today about, identifying the HVAC equipment that needs to be able to moved in, and except for a donated item that is an industrial size piece of equipment that someone donated to the district, we believe we're able to accommodate and move everything into the location. We know that it has challenges. Most places have challenges in our buildings, but we believe we'll be able to accomplish that. And we had folks who move equipment with us today. We had facility staff, and we had Ms. Mike and her staff, along with Principal Vaughter, as we were touring and coming forward with our recommendation related to what we could do with the Brashear site.
How much? How much for the move?
I think the move for that is slightly less than $300,000.
Yeah, that's about what I figured. Try this scenario. We sold the original South High building. And when we did, we put a whole new heating plant into the vocational building because the steam lines from the old building went under 10th Street and heated the VOTEC building. So We put in a new heating plant. We put some new windows. That building is totally built for vocational. It's got service elevator. It's got a door that backs right up by the service elevator. There's a parking lot. It's constructed of block and that shiny kind of block that's pretty fireproof. It's meant to be a vocational building. It's what it was built to be. The weight-bearing floors, everything is there. It's highly accessible from any part of the city. You've got that shop there. You've got the welding shop there. And we don't have a very big enrollment because the rumors have been, there's about 9 kids there, I think, but the rumors have been out for quite a while that it's going to close. So kids aren't going to sign up for a program that's going to close. But if we want to produce young people, and you can't, those classes are capped at 15 anyway. So if you want to produce young people who can weld and get jobs in heavy industry, and there is a growing demand for that, we could leave that program and rescind the vote from last month. Since you have to move machine operations anyway, it would be logical to put that program at South as well. We would still have the programs in the South. Brashear could still oversee the programs. It seems like we are disinvesting ourselves of vocational programs. We built an addition on the Carrick a few years back. We built a beautiful carpentry shop with outside access for delivery and dust collectors and everything you needed. And then one teacher, Mr. Jackson, retired, and the other teacher took a sabbatical, and that was the excuse to close the program, and the shop is sitting up there totally empty. We've had offers from the building trades to partner with us to train kids. Now, granted, the plumbers and the carpenters don't have their training sites in the city, and they're not real handy for the kids. But that certainly is not the excuse for IBEW, because they're right on the south side. They have a state-of-the-art program that is probably the best up and down the East Coast. But nobody's made an effort. It just seems as though vocational programs tend to be expensive. The classes are capped at a smaller size. And so we are sliding our way out of that. Now, if a young person is not particularly college bound, they'd rather work with their hands. These kids that come out of welding, HVAC, any of these trades, machine operations, tool and die makers are a dying breed. This is a really important subject. These kids make more than 80% of your college graduates. They can provide a good living, a good tax base for this city if we pay attention and invest in the kids who aren't going to be college bound. And it's like nobody cares. It's a small number. We'll forget about them. We'll get them to take something else. They're costing us too much. If we're serious, look at the building that is South Annex. Put the programs there. Put the machine shop there. Redo the welding. Redo the vote on the welding and recruit. Keep the HVAC there. And we can build a program. We can bring in industry and show us exactly what skills are needed. But we haven't had anybody try since Fred Monaco, for God's sakes. That's been a long time. I will not support this. I am totally fed up with our disinvestment in vocational education. It's like, we don't care. These kids are costing us too much. Excuse me.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley.
Just one question. The students from the McKnocker building, they will be moving into Oliver? I was just wondering, would they be able to avail themselves of the, if they're moving there, would they be able to utilize the vote tech programs that go, or they can't? Okay, I was just, they're teenagers. Some of them are teenagers. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask, as a special education person, I just wanted to know.
I just wanted to, if I could just provide some background, that's, it's a requirement because of the federal regulations, because they're in the least restricted environment, which McKnocker is what's an approved private school. So the students, because of their IEP, have to be in a very restricted environment, and they're not supposed to be in the regular flow and mix with regular education students. So that's why they wouldn't be able to avail themselves to the CTE programs. But they do have at McKnocker what other schools do, like CTE electives. You know, business, I believe they have a construction program over there right now. So they do have access to CTE, but they typically, because of their EIP, aren't able to access our CTE programs.
So the programs that are at the building at McKnocker, those CTE programs will be following those students?
Yes.
Mr. McRae.
Thank you. As I like to do, I'll start on a positive note. On number 17 and 18 is some very generous donations. One from the Colfax PTO, one from the Gleason Agency of Codes. I want to thank them. And then Mrs. Fink was much more eloquent than I can be on number 20. And I do agree with 100% that we are losing something by losing the trades out of our CTE program. As much as it disgusts me, the fracking is here to stay, and there are good jobs in that, and they do need to know how to weld. And I'll leave it at that. You were talking about putting on information into different places. Just a heads up, use the Northside Chronicle. They probably would be a good source to get information out about the changes on the north side. Let's see. The BFIT classes you discussed, there are 3 classes, correct? But we may only use 1 in the school. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, what Ms. Mike said is because you can have business as a program, finance as a program, or information technology, that Angela will be working with Principal Sacco to see which program students would like to enroll in for the first year. Could be business, students might want information technology, so we'll start with the one that has the highest student interest.
The students that are interested in the lower priority, could they then transfer to another school that is offering that?
Yes.
Let's make sure that they get that information. Well, there you go. How can they transfer to the other school?
I'll have Angela talk about how they go from region to region.
If one of the students chose another business program, then they could go into one of the other regional clusters to take that program. And they can transfer into that school for that program that they choose.
The next logical question is transportation.
They would be given transportation to get to and from the school, yes.
I realize it, but there's a loss of time there. Are you going to calculate that in everything?
Well, they would actually transfer a full transfer into that school,
Okay, that's
and then they
what I
would
wanted
be
to hear.
provided
It's a full
transportation.
not a PS6 transfer, but another. Okay, magnet transfer. Okay,
Correct.
got it. Let's see where I'm at. On 21, these changes kind of took me. I mean, my understanding was when I voted on this last month that ROTC was staying down in Oliver, but I understand the reason for bringing it up to Perry. Now, the drill area, where exactly is the drill area going to be?
We have identified the spaces on right as you're where the band area is now, if you're familiar with the building. The band's moving out of the band area, and we're converting that into the classroom and the drill area, which serves as an extra classroom space, and the storage and all the facility needs will be met within that area, as we met and worked with the colonel today.
That was my next question. You have a secure magazine then for them?
Clarify your questions, 'cause I'm not.
A secure magazine, in other words, you keep your arms, your guns.
Their arms and guns are, I asked this question specifically today,
Right.
They are just drill.
Yeah, I realize that, but if somebody walks into a bank with a gun like that, the teller doesn't know that.
We were building the same secure type of a space they have now in the Oliver building.
That's my concern, because we've had more gunfire incidents near Perry than there has been in Oliver, but that's another argument. The existing annex at Oliver then, would that still be available for them for after-school activities? Because they built that for the JROTC.
I expect they're going to build this correctly and they'll be able to do everything at Perry. If there's a need that they need to move, because then you're dealing with moving students back for that space. But I mean, it's still our building. We'd have to, assess how you would move students to that site.
Unlike the after-school activities, what I'm talking about, they're going to be moving around anyway. Would they be? That would be available to them if they needed that. I'm understanding that.
I know we're not doing anything to alter that space.
And you said the band is moving out. Where's the band going?
I think they're moving up onto the second floor, I believe.
The Brashear thing, I was just going over my head. I've done inspections of Brashear. Matter of fact, I did the various space you're talking about, the old kitchen area. Brashear has this huge HVAC facility. I mean, to feed the building, they have got huge equipment in there. Why not locate the classroom closer to that, where they would have more access to hands-on, instead of going to the expense of putting it up on the third floor?
I think what they would be accessing and having hands-on would be the type of equipment they're not even being trained on, very specific. You're talking about the plant for the heating plant for the building.
Right, the fiscal plant, right.
I think that I'm not the educator there, but I'm not sure if that's part of the educational program.
Okay, but I mean, it's there. It's something they can see working. They don't have to touch it or anything, but they can see how it functions and how it operates, and it would be a good learning experience for them to use their own building instead of being that far away from it. But that's a thought. And my concern is with what the Army's position is on moving the JRTC program. I think we really have to talk about that, because I believe that the information the Colonel gave me was that if we closed it at Oliver, then he would have to reapply.
They have to make application to move it. I think he knows all the steps that need to be followed.
Oh, he does.
I would be expecting that he would be given the charge as part of him being the good soldier he is.
And he will do it.
Yes.
That's not my concern. My concern is that the Army has a waiting list. And if we pop out, we may not get back. We may not get the program back, is what my concern is.
Ms. Shealy.
Thank you. So we will get an affirmative or some type of answer on the whole move in the JRTC thing, because I have those same questions too about, I thought that they couldn't move. I guess my other question, back to just, and this is actually not on the agenda, but it's come up, with McKnocker going into Oliver, the students of McKnocker will have full access to the Oliver facilities, including the pool and the gym and everything in the building.
We spent a considerable amount of time at Oliver already, and worked with the folks who manage the McKnocker program, and we've worked with our facilities team to identify how we're going to comply with the requirements that they are separate and provide the least restrictive environment. They are going to have the building, but it's going to be, you're going to have certain doors in certain areas so that they aren't crossing into where we're having, culinary arts and cosmetology, and then they're going to have, and then we're going to have the other adults within the building. So the steps are being taken to make sure we're complying with the IEPs of the students.
But still giving them access to the building, because we rent a gym every year.
Yes.
We won't be doing that for the McKnocker students anymore. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Are all the children in the North region going to be in the Perry building, or are there other students there I only say that, and when you said that you were going to survey the students in a building, or are you going to survey all the students in the cluster?
This is, Perry's the only high school remaining in the north region cluster. However, other students attend Perry outside of that feeder pattern because they're on the magnet. And so all students, as part of their course selection process that happens through the month of January, would be the students that we would work with.
Okay, so I'm saying all the students within that cluster. And if they're all in the building, okay, I'll go along with that. The biggest concern I have overall is that, well, as I understand it from what I've heard, is that with the signature programs, that students from all over the city can avail themselves to those programs. And the concern is that the automotive body repair and the automotive technology is in one location and not in two locations or more locations. And the concern is that that's available citywide, that all students can avail themselves, because I think there's more cars than people in the city, such that that's going to always be a need for auto body repair and automotive technology. I think it's one of the keys in our society for why we've lost so many people. The fact that we can leave the city at will or just go wherever we want to go. And it's destroyed a lot of neighborhoods too, but there have been some benefits to that also. So again, at some point in time, maybe down the road somewhere, if we can get automotive body repair or automotive technology in the east, or at least have two locations rather than one. When we get above board financially, it's some of the things or conversations we could have at that point in time. Thank you.
Mr. McCray.
Just a comment mostly. When you did a tour today of the buildings, it might save some time if you asked board members to come along with you. Or, no, maybe not, but I myself, it may have saved a little bit of time tonight. That's just a suggestion.
I've certainly gotten an earful on CTE this evening. I want to, reaffirm my personal and I believe my team's commitment to CTE. I think we clearly understand that our children need to be able to be prepared to choose what they want to do. If they want to do auto body, or if they want to go to Stanford, more power to them. I think that has to be a decision they need to be able to make. And I wouldn't want movement of a program to somehow indicate a lack of support or interest, frankly, in making sure kids have access to it. The reason that the JRTC program we thought would work better at the Perry building than at the Oliver building, or what you've heard. It's a timing issue in the way the classes work. But I agree, we have to confirm the fact that we are not putting our program in danger by moving it, because absolutely not. I mean, it can stay there if it needs to stay there. And we'll figure it out. But I know that it sounds to me that we're going to need to talk through once we get past this period where we're trying to make sure we've got all these things tied off, communicate with our parents and our kids so they know what's going on and where it's going to be, and encouraging them to sign up, or if they're already in the middle of a program, that they stay with it and not, we don't lose them because now it's either changing locations or not changing locations. Once that's passed, it would seem to me a good idea that we take a little time at an education committee, talk through CTE again. It's clear that many board members, some at least, have not been totally satisfied with how we've rolled out the program. And I absolutely am willing to talk through what would ideal look like for CTE for our kids. So I'll just say that, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this topic again.
With all this talk about the CTE program being at Perry and children availing themselves to it, I'm still concerned about the number of students that you're actually going to have at Perry. You're telling me now that I know all of the children from the north side That's their school of that's their high school of record. And you're also going to allow magnet school students to still enter into Perry. How many magnet school students have, do we know about how many have?
I'm not sure if Kate's still here, even if she has that data, but Perry Services predominantly, well over 90% of their students are from the north side. Very few actually come from around the city, but we could follow up in the board update if that's okay.
Well, I know that there are several students that come from East End. There are a lot of students that travel from the East End to Perry. There's actually a bus that takes them, I think, from the East End to downtown or wherever. But I'm really concerned about now the number of children that will actually be in Perry. Now that I'm hearing that, you know, children can avail themselves to all of these, to the CTE programs that are there. We need to know really how many children are going to be there. I mean, that's
Put that in the board update on Friday for you.
Just a quick question. You know, Dr. Lane, at the meeting when we talked about these transfers and changes before, I had asked a question, and I'll ask it again. Can we have the staff to do just a, for lack of a better term, like a markup of what would it look like if we located all the CTE programs at Oliver? They said that Oliver has the equipment there for the culinary arts. I believe there's some other things that are there that haven't been used. You have access to the parking. There are things that are already in place. What would that mean? What would that look like in terms of a cost? And would it be an attraction, being that it's somewhat centrally located as the CTE regional section? You know, I've always had concerns about all of these little spots that we have, these CTE programs. I mean, if we just scale it down two locations, you know, one on each side of the city, but have everything under one roof, and see if that's a possibility. If it's a large cost, but at the end it'll work out because we will have everything, and we won't have to turn the child away, and maybe it'll relieve some of the pressure in some of these other areas if there is pressure. But I would still like to know the possibility. So, you know, and then of course you would have to deal with McKnocker, those students there. So I don't know. I've raised concerns about it before, but I've just asked questions and see if that's a possibility.
I don't know, you know, how long would it take to work that up, is kind of mock that out, what it would take. But we, you know, as I said, we would probably give you some, you know, back of the envelope kind of information in that regard. Because I know that one of the things about some of our CTE programs is they are very intense in terms of not only space requirements but equipment, and that's really what is a cost driver, you know, in creating such a model, because of the cost of the equipment and even if we were bringing it in from other sites. But as I said, we'll see what we can figure out and give you at least some kind of baseline information if we can.
Thank you, and I would like to echo my concern about putting these programs in Brashear. I think they should, for cost purposes, until we know exactly where we want to end up with CTE, it doesn't make sense to make plans to move them into Brashear and then turn around and limit ourselves to where we want them to be long-term. Because it does seem like we're scaling back on them, and I do have concerns with that. As far as that culinary, Dr. Lippert just left, but last year I met with a group of students at Langley, and then a month later I met with a group of students at Brashear. And the irony was, it was nail your board member with any question you want to ask. Both meetings, the students came up with, they wanted an elective that was tied into health, but it was cooking. They wanted to learn how to cook healthy. And not, they're not looking for a career in it. They don't want to sign up for a CTE program. They want to learn how to live healthier lives. There's that new mindset is out there for our kids. And so that might be a good use of that space at Brashear, at least for a while, till we could decide what we want to do permanently. And if not, it's still good use for it. Okay. All right, we'll move along. That concludes the education part. We'll move on to the Committee on Business and Finance. And Mr. Camarda, we have on the A section.
In your black folder, and I will apologize. We had some folks who had an illness and an item fell through the cracks. So in your black folder is a walk-on item that was not in the agenda review package related to technology software needs. And if there are any questions in the blue section. There were two, and also in your folder as we move through, there are two general authorization items. I'll just speak to them now. Oh no, okay.
We'll be random all over the place with questions. Right now, all is the December walk-on with MCPC. So we're on payments authorized, number 1 through 4, plus the walk-on on the various color of blue sheets. Mr. Brentley.
No questions.
Mrs. Khaleesi.
You know, I try to avoid asking questions on the floor, but I asked my questions in writing, and I did say that they were coming in late, and it wasn't because of me. It was because our board secretary could not get them out. She had a family emergency on Monday. So I said that if you couldn't get the answers out, not to worry about them, I'd ask them here. I got the return back, and it's got 3 of the questions I asked to ask at the table. Couldn't we get the answers? I mean, they weren't that hard. I don't have answers.
I didn't give you that answer.
Well, it's on my thing. It came to me.
I did not give you that answer.
Well, no, that's okay. Thank you.
Dr. Hawley?
I need to step in on this because I think there was confusion about the way you moved that and the interpretation was made. And I believe it was interpreted that it was acceptable that you would ask the question at the table. So when I say I didn't give that answer, it's because I did not give you that answer. The answer was given because the interpretation was you were ready to ask the question at the table and the people would have to answer are willing and able and want to answer at the table. I just wanted to clarify that. And maybe connected to the timing and related to Ms. Wanger, who could not move the information out correctly?
It doesn't matter, okay? I was just trying to save time by doing that, okay? And it appears as though you didn't want to answer it. You wanted me to answer it on the floor.
Looking at me as if I did not want to answer them. They weren't even my questions.
Excuse me just a minute. I have a sheet that I believe, Mrs. Khaleesi, were questions that you may have answered that looks different than anything I've ever gotten before from you. And so I'm not sure if what happened was, and I don't know if Ms. Winger can help us out here. Is she still here? Yeah. Typically what happens is the questions get sent out, we fill them in, we send them back. Is that what happened this time? Okay, so did they all get answered? Or no? Do you remember?
Dr. Lane, it's
Okay.
I just would like
I'm
to,
sorry, I'm confused now as to what happened
I'd
here.
like to clarify.
Okay.
Only because I'm going to translate for my buddy here. What happened was the way we got the information, it sounded like you had a choice. You could either answer the question in writing to Mrs. Khaleesi or be ready to answer the question on the floor. I know that's not what you intended, but that was the interpretation. So what happened was many people, because it came so late, said, I'll just go with answering it on the floor. And so they didn't fill in the blanks, and whoever completed the blocks wrote in, "will answer on the floor." That wasn't.
That's not what they answered. And I understand
You know what I'm
now.
saying?
But the answer that came back to me is a little asterisk, and it says, ask at the table. In other words, I was to ask it at the table as though they didn't want to answer it. So that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't care anymore. I just wanted to try to avoid this, and here I am 10 minutes later. That was what I was trying to do, was avoid that. Okay? I wasn't trying to. So what I was going to say, if you would have gave me the opportunity to finish it, was, if you don't mind, because it's late, I would prefer you answered the questions in writing and I wouldn't sit here and ask them, which is what I was going to say.
We will answer your questions in writing.
Thank you.
Dr. Hawley.
I just have one thing, the Improvita. Could you walk me through this? The way I understand it is, it's under resolutions. There's no number on it, it's just under the resolutions. The software maintenance, IMPR, IVATA. It's, is where it is? Software maintenance. No, this was not the walk-on. This is under the, in the, there's, it's page 3. Is it A1? Yeah. A1, page 3, I'm sorry.
I would be happy to.
Okay.
If you recall, during the IT presentation that was given earlier, we talked about implementing a solution that would allow educators and administrators a single sign-on capacity that will allow them to just log in once instead of the 20-plus different times that they have to currently to access the different systems. So this is the application that will allow that.
It just seems like it's not that difficult to log in. I just didn't know if it's going to save that many person hours.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's all I have.
Ms. Shealy. Mr. Sumter.
No questions at this time. However, if concerns come up, we still have another opportunity to answer or have questions asked. And we probably have an opportunity to write down questions and send them in between now and legislative and get responses back. We may have the opportunity to call people on the phone and talk to them and discuss items of concerns. We may have the opportunity to meet with staff and get information between now and the legislative meeting. So I'll just pass at this point. Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to consultants and contracted services. It's the B section of the business finance report. It's on the pink, I guess, salmon color pages. Mr. Brentley, we'll start with you.
Not at this time.
Dr. Hawley.
Sorry, not at this time.
Ms. Shealy.
Just for the stenographer services under B8, what happens if we go over 4 hours? It just, oh, I'm sorry, it is listed here. It says it. I'm sorry, it does say it. Thank you. That's it for me.
Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Again, I'd like to pass at this opportunity to have questions answered. And if there's anything in the business and finance section that pertains to information technology, because I have, or the liaison of the committee that works with that division, board members can also contact me if they have any concerns also. Thank you.
All right, so my question is, Mr. Sumter, on B4, IntelliSpring from Georgia, I understand that it's a company, not a person, but was there not someplace in the, at least Pittsburgh region that could do this work? I also understand we tried to hire somebody and they turned us down.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Azuda. I'd be pleased to pass that off to Mr. Campbell to answer. Thank you.
There you go, okay.
Mrs. Zuda, the history behind this position, about 4 months ago, we had a full-time employee who resigned the position, and in working with Human Resources, we made several offers to individuals, I believe it was up to 3, that after or at the point of the offer, they decided to decline the position either for the residency requirement reason or the salary being not so close to market rate. And this is a key position in IT, the database analyst providing data support to the Pinnacle project, as well as the data requests that we get in from outside. So this board tab is to attempt to secure a consultant to fill that position until at such time we could possibly locate a local hire, but it's going to be real difficult. It has been difficult for the last 4 to 5 months, and this would be a nationwide search.
And I guess where my brain goes, if this company is getting 120,000, they're going to hire somebody for less than that because that's how they make their money. So why can't we find the equivalent person at less than that?
Because the person that they find in a consultant role would not have the residency requirement. And if you look at the salary, our salary structure plus benefits, if you include the benefits inclusive of the base salary, it would be close to what we are seeking approval for this consultant.
And your anticipation is this will be a non-permanent arrangement?
Absolutely. As with all consultants in IT, we try to go with a 1-year renewable or until as long as the services are needed. If we get to the point after 6 months, we're stabilized, but we normally try to go for a year. And we have a backlog right now that I'm sure that we can use these services for a year.
Does this contract preclude us from hiring this person?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Campbell.
There you go. Wait, I'm not done. All right. Mrs. Vistetti on B9. I waited till everybody else was done. On B9, what did we pay for these services last year?
$48,000.
All right, good answer. Thank you. Mr. Brentley.
Yes, on the same question on B9, I want to suggest that we find a way, well, is there a possibility to tie some of this into some student training or on-the-job training for some of our students?
Yes.
Secondly, I would suggest, if it's feasible, Ms. Mike, if she can look into tying this into the Business and Finance and Information Program at Perry, somehow getting our students to participate at PCTV, which is on the north side, allowing them to study up under, of course, our great Mr. Skoniak right here, and the folks at PCTV to qualify for their certification program. PCTV has a wonderful certification to become community producers. We can add something into that almost at a zero cost, have our students walking away with certification, on-hand experience in filming, editing, and being trained under the best. And it would be a wonderful, wonderful deal. So I would love for someone to work that up and to present that and to show where it's tied in. Secondly, as a producer there at PCTV, for at least the last 5 or 6 years, the directors have repeatedly asked for a relationship with this district. We can provide, we can help, we can serve. Look at our studios. We want to help. It's at least 5 years that I know I've been bringing it here at this table for our students to get access to it. So I'm asking that we take advantage of it. I know there's some creative minds on this staff, Doctor, who can tie in some other things in making it an editing, producing, course. and they can offer the certification down there. But please take advantage of it, and it's a great opportunity for some of our kids to get access to it. Thank you.
Is this in addition to the Channel 13 as well? Is it in addition to, or are you substituting?
No, what we have done in the past is we have services to videotape the board meetings, and that's what this is for. There's a separate item, it's in the yellow section, that is for airtime on the city channel station. So when we get to the yellow section, you might want to look at that item, which is C12.
So in other words, we're going to have both?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I think the public would need to know, they want to know that. That's nice. I think that's a good idea.
All right, moving right along to the C section, general authorizations. Mr. Camarda?
In your black folder, there are 2 additional items in the C section. One, Ms. Shetty just referenced C12 and spoke about related to the television program and putting the Excellence for All television program on the air. And the other item is C13, which is accepting, it's an amendment to a previous item with the board in October. It's accepting $150,000 from the R.K. Mellon Foundation for that endeavor.
Mr. Brentley, do you have any questions in general authorizations?
The new item C13. Dr. Lane, this is in addition to what we voted on 2 months ago.
Actually, Mr. Bentley, when I asked you to approve the contract a couple of months ago, I did say that I would be seeking additional funding to support that contract, and this is that additional funding that has been generously provided to us by the R.K. Mellon Foundation.
Okay, so the total cost, is it $350,000 or is it $450,000? What is the total?
$250.
Total is $250. This is a second $250?
No. Total's
Okay.
$250.
So the first we voted on was $250, was similar to the breakdown. Why is it before us again?
Because what you voted on was the contract.
Okay.
What we're asking you to vote on this time is, well, let me back up. You voted on the contract for $250,000, and at that point, I think we had a $50,000 contribution from the Fund for Excellence, and the tab said that I would be seeking additional support for the contract outside of district operating budget. What we're asking you to vote on this month is the fact that the R.K. Mellon Foundation has generously agreed to provide $150,000 to help pay for this contract. And so that's what you're asking to vote on, to accept money from the R.K. Mellon Foundation.
So we kind of flow the check then. We didn't have the money. We didn't have the money. You asked for $250,000, but you only had $50,000.
No.
And you needed somebody else to pay, so they're now paying $150,000 because we didn't have it. If we're still getting more, how much of it did we have, or what did we vote on?
Well, you voted on the $250,000, and it wasn't, floating a check would imply that it would have like bounced or something, which of course is not true. But
we didn't have the money though.
Mr. Brentley, I was very clear in the tab that we have money, but what I was saying was I didn't want to use operating budget to support this if we could get some additional support. And so that's why you're being asked to, and I said in the tab that I was going to continue to seek additional support to pay for the contract. And so you're being asked to accept that additional support.
Okay. Well, so we used our $250,000 2 months ago when we voted for this, but they're saying we'll come back and reimburse you 150 of that towards this 250.
Well, the contract's actually not over, so not all of the invoices have been paid at this point.
So, but this is the final amount, or you're saying it's going to continue?
No, no, no. The contract ends this month.
Okay, but the amount won't change.
No, the amount's not going to go up.
Okay,
Mhm.
but so has this been paid in full yet?
No,
It hasn't.
no.
Okay, so how do we vote for?
Well, the contract's not over, so it wouldn't be paid till they're finished, right? See, the contract ends the end of the month, and so we would not be paying off everything until they've ended their contract, until they've completed all the services.
But we authorized 250,000. That's what our vote does, right? It authorizes those dollars.
It did, yes,
Okay. But it's not paid off, you say?
because it's not over.
But we authorized it.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
You know, yeah, I just, so if we, so in other words, if they came in and closed this contract today, how would we pay them? We would pay them of 250,000 that we have voted on and authorized for, and then you would continue to go and find other folks to help.
Well, not 250,000, because we already had support to the tune. We had 50,000 in support when we started.
Okay.
Remember? So the maximum the district would have been liable for is 200,000.
Okay, you know, then maybe I need to get clarification, because I believe, and my understanding is that when we sit down at the table of legislative meeting and we vote, our vote is final. We approve, we authorize, we gave, we granted, we okayed those dollars. And I didn't know, in some cases, it can be an approval of dollars, but it's a catch-up situation. Well, we need you to authorize it, but we're going to still go get. I did not know that we can operate that way, and I didn't know that that's something that we can do. I didn't even know if it's allowable, really, because if you approve it, I'm thinking it's paid. Because see, that's why when I seen the name, I said, hey, this is that company from out of town that I asked questions about.
Right.
Hey, don't we have somebody locally on the ground here who can do that, maybe even a little better here in Pittsburgh? And they said, well, no, this company was a specialty. But when we voted, that's why I raised questions, 250,000. I just thought when it was a vote, it passed. I had concerns, but it passed. And so next, and I didn't think it'd be before us again, but now it's before us again, saying that we're accepting more dollars to pay it off or to pay towards it. It's confusing. I
Well,
just thought it was paid
I
for,
tried to
but-
make it as clear as I could, but
Okay.
the original board tab did say that I would be seeking additional support for the contract.
Okay. Well, in closing,
Mhm.
if you say that you're seeking additional support, then what we authorized could not have been the 250,000, or what we authorized was just acceptance of the 50,000 towards it. That's what I'm trying to say. So in other words, it's a blank check that we kind of held, but we're going to get some more money. But in other words, we're still, if we can't identify, if this other 250,000 before us now would not have come forward, at the end of the year, this contract would have been over. We would have been responsible for the total or the balance.
That's right.
That's my point. My understanding when I voted 2 months ago, I thought it was over. So this item before us would have been a moot point. What? We paid for them. Done. It's next. Move on. But it is not that. So there's something where, there's some flexibility and some time that's open that allows us to say, it's before you vote for it, but we got language in there that we're going to still work on paying it off. And that's news to me. I've never knew that we can do that. And it's a little confusing to me. So. Are there any other items like that where we voted on and it's like floating?
Well,
it's
I guess
waiting?
I've never had quite so much trouble over accepting 150,000 before, but no, there are no other items like this.
Well, I don't think nobody worries about accepting it, but when you have a large ticket item that comes before you twice, and the understanding was the first one we thought we approved it, somebody's got to explain it a little better, that's all. Thank you.
Dr. Hawley.
I just want to have someone publicly explain the procedure that will happen with C12 and the other item that I talked about. in terms of having both the public access station, Channel 13, and Channel 21.
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt? Because I don't think on all cable systems, or is it always Channel 13 and Channel 21?
No, I don't get 13.
Yeah,
Oh, well,
so that,
for Pittsburgh, it would be Channel. That's Comcast. I'm sorry if you don't have. Oh, I'm sorry you don't have. That's all I know. That's what I call it. So. Oh,
sorry to interrupt you, but could you provide that clarity on that channel thing too, as you answer her question?
This is Comcast. So it is Channel 13. And I think they have about 90,000 households, because I'd asked that question in terms of what their penetration was when we were doing an analysis of costs. And we have to go to the city in order to get them to agree to air our board meetings and to provide us with extra time to air other things that the school district would like to air. I think it's at least, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 years now, that we did our Excellence for All television show. It was 2 years that we did that. And so we specifically had that run. That was an hour-long show. Additionally, we can air other things if we package them appropriately. So just for your knowledge, as a result of the budget reductions, we are not going to be able to create the number of Excellence for All television shows that we had in the past. So that did get reduced from our budget, and the board was made aware of that probably about 2 or 3 months ago. But instead, in that time that we're allowed to air our Excellence for All television shows, we're going to go back and repackage some of them, because many of them are evergreen in terms of their message around literacy, around pathways to the promise. So we are going to use that time and repackage and re-edit some of what we had, which is less costly than trying to create a new show. Additionally, we'll be creating new Excellence for All television shows that aren't going to be quite the same way. For example, I think you were one of the board members that went and saw Dr. Albright at Obama, and Mr. Skalniak did tape that entire time. So what we did is Ms. Pugh videotaped a front end that sort of introduces the audience, the viewers, to know what you're going to see, and then you're going to see the footage of the children at Obama, and I think she might have done a back end of that too, and Dave, you can stop me if I'm wrong. So the point I'm making about telling you this, because I'm trying to catch you up on some background here, is that we are trying to, in the most cost-effective way that we can, utilize all of the channels of communications that are available to us, and do so by using as much in-house resources as we can. And certainly now that we are going to go with PCTV to be the production company that videotapes our board meetings, Mr. Brentley is correct that they are going to offer us other services that may also allow us to convert some of that services into ways that we can have shows or video broadcasts on Channel 13. And so all of that is not worked out yet, because this will be a brand new relationship with PCTV, but that is something that we're going to be exploring with them.
Okay.
Mr. McCray.
This is the part of the, well, we're levying taxes in the other section. But on C4, I just want to note that we are giving out the homestead and farmstead exemption like I've always wanted to do. Thank you.
Ms. Shealy. Mr. Sumter. Moving along to D section, which is goldenrod. Okay, go ahead. We're going back to Ms. Shealy a minute.
Sorry, and I lost track of where the item was. But there is something in here about the homes, a placeholder for the homestead tax.
That's the distribution of the the gaming revenues as through the homestead exemption.
So that is not tied to the county assessment.
Yes, it is.
Then why is it here and not in Jan?
Well, the number, we won't know the number.
How could we have a vote in December?
Is it a blank, Pete?
It's a placeholder.
So is it going to get pulled?
We were preparing and positioning ourselves that we would have the information needed, and more than likely will be pulled next week.
Moving along to the goldenrod pages, section D. Dr. Hawley?
Nothing.
Mr. Sumter? I don't know if you want to comment on these at all for finance. What'd I say?
You said
Oh.
Okay. I don't know where to go from that one. But section D is the section for levying taxes. I believe because of the county situation, we're going to hold this. And go, Mr. Party, want to?
Just the real estate section.
Just the real estate part? Yeah, we'll levy the wage,
earned income tax,
earned income
and
tax,
realty transfer.
and realty transfer taxes, but the rest of it will be holding until January. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and that's where we are.
Thank you. Ms. Shealy? Mr. Sumter?
None at this time, thank you.
All right, any announcements? I hope not. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.